Hi there, guys. It is your creepy little voodoo doll. We are doing another one of the Hellraisers. So, this one is Hellraiser 7 Deader. If you don't know this film, that is okay. It is probably one of the lesser known of the Hellraisers, simply because of the factor. Um, well, the best way to put it for this one is it's kind of an oddball one. I'm just literally using my notes to make sure I have the dates and everything correct. But it was released in 2005, so 3 years after number 6, which, in my opinion, was probably one of the better of, if not the best, in my opinion, of them, which was the Hellseeker, which was the last one, unfortunately, that was with Christy, at least to my knowledge, unless they brought her into the new remakes. I don't think so. They might have brought like her family into it or something, but I actually haven't watched those. So when we go to do those, I will freshly have just watched them. So keep that in mind, guys. With this one, it had an R rating as well, but this one actually got a little bit longer of time. The previous one was an hour and 28 minutes. This is an hour and 30 minutes, so it only got a couple more minutes, but still. It does still have where it is a horror mystery theme, although in my opinion there's not really as much mystery to this one. The other one, it kind of made sense because it was more of a mental mystery. If you haven't seen that film, go watch it. It's a wonderful watch. It'll keep you guessing to the very end. With this one, I can't say the same thing. We follow a news reporter. Her name is Amy, and Amy is the type that when you have a case that is a little bit more you have to dive into type thing, she goes into places like in the opening scene we see her in a drug den basically, and she's pretty much just like infiltrated her way into this to do a story on on drug lords, and like she of course hides her name except for her newspaper name, but we know her as Amy Killen. I never say these names correctly. But she's basically sent by Charles, her boss, to go and look into this case that he has sent a film about. Now, we watched this film in the beginning, and it's a little bit odd because basically the only things you really see are somebody being brought back from the dead. Yes, you heard me correctly. This film has to do with people being brought back from the dead. Hence the name Deader. Basically, Amy tries to figure out where this tape has originated from. There's only the person who's in it that dies and comes back that they even have any kind of information on. So they go and they try, well, she does, to try to find out any information from this young woman who, when they get to her, they find is dead of a apparent overdose, I'm going to say. Her head is very close to a toilet, and the body is, sorry for this grotesqueness, but pretty decayed at that point. So she's been dead for a little while when Amy finds her. But then, oddly, we see afterwards, because for some odd reason, and I don't understand this because, in my personal opinion, if I was Charles, I probably would have played around with this more and probably would have been the person to open it instead of Amy. But the lament configuration is literally delivered with this tape. So Amy has the lament configuration. She has all this information and this dead end from this girl. And she's sitting in her hotel apartment, like, it looks like a mini apartment, basically. And she's playing with the box. And she opens it. And you just see chains attached to her face in a very dramatic way. And she wakes up covered in blood. Keep that in mind. It's a very important scene. It has a lot to do with spoilers. Spoilers ahead for this film. Unfortunately, I can't go into details on this one without giving away anything. It's kind of a give all, be all, with just trying to talk about its entire themes, because the whole entire purpose is Amy is trying to get a hold of this person who, let's see, where is his name? But basically, the lament configuration has fallen into the hands of the descendant of the one who was LaMarche, the original creator of the box, his name is Winter. I know, silly name for somebody, but he is the descendant from the man who created the toy maker lament configuration. And you come to find out that he's literally been recruiting people to die to be brought back by the box. And you come to find out that he, for some odd reason, has been able to do so because of his bloodline. So he basically thinks himself almost a god because he can bring people back from the dead. What he doesn't realize is they're opening the lament configuration. They are, for lack of a better term, Pinhead for some reason just hasn't seen these deadites or deaders. I don't know how you want to, I think they call them deadites in it, but we all know that deadites are actually from Evil Dead, and they're totally different creatures. These are literally just dead, reanimated people. So, basically, like I said, Amy is searching. She finds Winters. Winters basically tells her, you end yourself, and I'll give you all the answers that you need. You just have to do the ceremony that everybody else has done. So she literally comes to a realization, and you see some warning to anybody who watches this film. Amy's backstory is very harsh topics to deal with. All right, a lot of Hellraisers have a lot to do with sexual themes. One of the unfortunate ones of this is molestation, rape, and child abuse. And as you can guess, Amy was a very young little girl when all this occurred, and it was by the hands of her father, which we see very strongly in this. She has a very big flashback of that. So if there is a issue where it will trigger any kind of horrible emotions or cause any kind of problems to you, this film is one to avoid. It very much deals with her backstory and puts it to a front focus for quite a few moments and scenes. So you will have to deal with, like you did in the first one, Christy. And they did it in a very tasteful way of talking about what Frank did to her. The scene in the very first one with the bloody cloth on the table where you can see an outline of a body on it and then a screaming child is a reference to that. It's an unfortunate reference, but it's done in a much more tasteful way than I think most people do. It's only hinted. Yeah, you have the red stain start where it does, and if you've seen the scene, you know what I'm talking about. I'm not going to go into detail for those who don't want to deal with that. But it is done in my opinion, a much more tasteful way than a lot of films do. This one gets very up in your face. You have a moment where he does try to take a belt to her, and she reverts to her small child form. So yeah, pre-warning for anybody who does not want to deal with harsher topics such as those. This is not the film for you. I would suggest skipping to maybe number 8, or skipping that part of the film. I just told you what happens in it. You don't need any more of it. That's enough, trust me. You really don't. It's meant to give you a guttural reaction. You definitely get a guttural reaction to that scene. So, pre-warning for anybody, that is a guttural scene. And not in the sense that it is horrific. There is some gore in it, but that does not mean that it is in that aspect. It's just more of a harsher topic. So that being said, do keep that in mind, that this film does talk about those and deal with those subjects. So we go, and basically Amy is where she's been flashing with, a lot like Trevor was, with hallucinations in between reality and hell, basically. Where you come to realize Amy in her hotel room, when she woke up with blood, had already killed herself. She had used a knife and stabbed herself in the back several times, and I don't know why, but she basically ended her life there. And she's been trapped in a purgatory-like place just like the rest of the debtors. And now basically, since she was the only one who was able to actually open the lament configuration properly, the rest of them were unable to, which is why they were trapped in a dead-like state. She actually calls Pinhead. And it isn't, unfortunately, till the end of the film, like in the other one, where we even see Pinhead all that much. Like, we get a couple glimpses here and there, but he's not, again, a very front-focusing character like he is in later ones, for sure. Like, I know for the next one, he's quite a bit more in it than this one. But I think that has a lot to do with the factor that the actor who plays the character Pinhead really didn't want to keep doing these films anymore. That's why he's not actually in the newer ones. He's actually retired as an actor, and he only does where he sometimes goes to like Comic-Cons to just do just sitting there and just do signings and meet and greets and stuff like that. He's not an active actor anymore. So in that respect, I think a lot of these later films are cut down with his parts purposely so that he could still be in them, but wouldn't have such as hectic of a schedule as he did, because I feel as though he was doing other films at the same time. And this also is one that is kind of differs in a lot of ways than the others, because at the end of it, we just get where, and I hate to say this, it seems really sad, and looking back on it, Amy's pretty much trapped in her scenario. She's usually able to get herself out of her worst situations. Like I said in the very beginning, she was literally in a drug den where she was taking down a high, criminal family that were drug lords. She was able to walk out of there like it was nothing and drop her addiction the next day and just reported in for her work and just did the story. And then we come to have where, after what I'm about to say happens, the ending to it just leaves you almost unsatisfied because of what happens. I think it kind of was rushed, in my opinion. I don't think it was originally supposed to be this ending. It just doesn't feel like it sits right or was originally concepted this way. So you have all the debtors in a circle around Amy, who's supposed to be doing her initiation ceremony of killing herself, right? And coming back as a debtor. And, oh yeah? Chill out, baby girl. My cat's in heat, I apologize. You've probably heard this in other films. And if you're wondering, yes, I've done a bunch of films in the same day, which is why I have the same shirt on, and yeah. But they're all standing in the circle. They're all about to, let her do her part of the ceremony. And she basically opens the box again, brings forth Pinhead, and, she basically says, how are you going to take my soul when you have all these other ones who are just walking around Earth just dead? So he starts killing all of them. And of course, this is probably my favorite part of this whole entire film, just because it goes and it does homage to the original. There's a moment when Winter, big spoiler, Winter does not make it through this film. He's not the last descendant. Well, he's supposedly the last descendant, but that really doesn't make any logical sense when you take into account the previous film that I spoke about, where they have a descendant that literally is 1,000 years in the future from all of these films. Winter can't be the last one. He's probably just the last known one at that point. But anyhow, he is basically in a very, very similar fashion to Frank when he is in Christy's father's skin, torn apart by chains. And he even does the God wept moment. So it's just this really nice homage to the original film of the original bad guy dying. So it's kind of a throwback, and I love that. But it just seems like an unfitting end to a descendant of a bloodline that has multiple films, multiple installments where they matter, and to try to say he's the last of them. But then we have a character that's 100 years later. I think it was 20 something that the one film occurs in for it. So they kind of made a boo-boo there, but films sometimes do that, and you just gotta take it with a grain of salt. Continuity on some films don't always stay the way that they should. But basically, Pinhead takes all of these debtors and takes them back to hell with him. And then Amy is basically told, well, I'm gonna torture you, kid. Like, Pinhead basically says, your soul's mine. You really don't have a choice. But she does. See, I don't get this part. I don't think I ever will. She has the only option of killing herself. Which, it didn't make sense to me because as far as the story was trying to make you believe, she already was dead. And, like, everything of this was just basically a big hallucination, almost. So, why does she kill herself at the end and supposedly saves herself from Pinhead, where she just dies, almost martyring herself, right? And then, oddly enough, a videotape in the very same style and fashion somehow magically gets sent back to her boss with the box. And then he ends up walking out with another one of his reporters, where basically he's like, I got a story for you. And that's how it ends. It's this unsatisfactory, like, Amy's just dead. Hi, baby. Come on. Amy's just dead. You know, the story's just continuing. Come on. And, you know, it's just the end of Amy's story. And it's like, okay, well, that's very unsatisfactory when we've been following this character, Amy, her development, her backstory, learning who she was, what she did, things like that. And then it's just, you're dead. Like, probably the most unsatisfactory of all of the, like, endings, in my opinion, of the Hellraisers. So, isn't she just cute? This is my Mika. She's 6. My cutie little baby. She's what's called a tortoiseshell. And, yeah, it's just, in my opinion, this is the least, of all the films on its ending. It definitely, don't show kitty booty. It definitely is where it could have had far superior of an ending. They could have had where winter mattered quite a bit more, stuff like that. And, you know, it just was, in my opinion, far less story driven than the previous number 6 or 5, even 4, 3, 2, 1, all of them. I did like that it threw back to certain parts, like I said, like the homage to Frank, and other stuff like that. And I liked, I guess, Amy's character of trying to show a strong, independent woman that could just do what she needed to do. But it was like the story arc just didn't make sense. We had these people who were supposedly dead, but weren't dead, and they were stuck in this purgatory, but it's like that none of them could open the box perfectly, so they couldn't summon Pinhead to bring them to hell. And it's like, okay, so was everybody always able to, like, not open this box, be around it, die, and come back? It just doesn't make any logical sense in the retrospect of it. And, like, I don't know, it's just hard to digest this film as being an actual true, like, chronologically correct, and, like, I don't know, consistency in this film just doesn't seem like it's there like it is in others. So in my opinion, I like it, but it's not as good as it could be. I'm gonna give it a 3 out of 5 just because I do like the way that it's filmed. I do like some of its acting. I do like some of its effects. There was a lot of prosthetics used, like the chain, they were actually put into her skulls on certain parts, like the ones in the back of her head weren't, those were actually computer generated, but like they put prosthetics on her face, and like it was very much a physical effect or a practical effect to this film of prosthetics more than it was CG. You can tell where the horrible CG is in it too, and it just takes away from the film quite a bit. because there's a scene where they shoot chains through all of them to kill them instantly, and the hole that they leave in the bodies just looks so horrible. And like, but other than that, great film. I did like its use of the story that it was given, but I feel as though it was really just a very big stretch to make another film. I don't think it follows any kind of consistency to the previous films, where it was like you open this box and hell itself comes after you. I feel like this is more or less trying to be a mental gymnastics for people to be more of a film than it was, and didn't have the story to be the film that it wanted to be. But it wasn't a horrible film. So I hope you enjoyed this review. I hope that you enjoy all my reviews, in honest truth. If you want to leave me any, comments, like the, video, share it, I'd be grateful for all of the above. All of my social medias are always the same. Kiki Voodoo Doll 666 for my TikTok and for my Instagram. You got me here as Voodoo Doll 666, and you have me for Voodoo Doll 666 on what else is there? My my Voodoo Doll 66 is just my YouTube, and then my Twitch is twitch.tv/Voodoo Doll 90. I also, like I said in the previous video, just did a fan page on Facebook with just the name Voodoo Doll. You'll see a lovely little black and white Voodoo Doll image and the butterfly in the background actually it's a moth, but the moth in the background that you see on here all the time will be the banner on there, so you know somewhat that it is me. If you want to give me any kind of comments, suggestions, content ideas at all, feel free on any of them. I'm available on, like I said, TikTok, Instagram, here on YouTube, over on Facebook. Feel free to go to any of the social medias. One of these days I'll just put them on here so you guys have them all. Till then, I hope that you guys liked this review. Hope that you're having a wonderful day, evening, night, wherever this finds you. I love you all so much. Stay spooky, my darlings. Till the next time.